I'm very well. Thank you, Tyler. It feels like only yesterday we were doing this. um, I'm good. And you're right. This conversation today, I think, you know, the topic of the three powers that we spoke about last week, I'm still in a lot of ways still processing, what we spoke about there. And it is a complete shift in just the way that I'm connecting the dots in what's required for us to be able to step out of our comfort zone and to start taking those steps towards, what it is that's most important to us. In slightly different ways, I had been obviously thinking about that myself and thinking about, the things that we need to do to allow ourselves to deal with that balance between our emotions, our feelings, the resistance that gets in the way of us doing the things that we want to be doing. Coming back to that clear vision and knowing what it is that we are wanting to create, wanting to move towards, and working through that resistance. And I think what we spoke about last week really did help me, particularly, to create a bit of a sense of understanding around how this works. In the past, I have very much probably been a bit too focused on the end result and, trying to work towards something external. Obviously, I've been sort of managing resistance and dealing with resistance in ways that have certainly helped me to make enormous progress towards the goals that I've aimed my energies at and efforts at. But I think this different perspective is something really interesting that we can all, allow ourselves just to think about something, from a different perspective. Often it takes us, potentially looking at the same thing from different angles to really be able to understand. And, what did come up for me on last Thursday when we had that initial conversation was excellent. That all sounds fantastic, but how do I apply this to my vision? Because for me, it's about, understanding our vision. What we spoke about last week was understanding our vision and then, working from the inside out, watching and paying attention to our feelings, our thoughts, and finally letting our actions act accordingly, which was a massive conversation. But I did find myself thinking how we can apply this and how it specifically relates back to some of the challenges that we're facing on a daily basis. And more importantly for us at the moment in this, how, thinking back to where we were, where you and I were, Tyler, a couple of years ago, for example, where we had even more challenges in terms of, where do we start in terms of creating this thing that we want to move towards? Back 2-3 years ago, we were at the very, very start. And in many ways, I think taking those first few steps are, in some ways, the hardest steps to take. And what I sort of referred to in that conversation and what I'm really looking forward to exploring further today is how, when we are at that very beginning of our journey, how we can start to use the framework that we spoke about and use what we're going to talk about today to allow us to start taking those first steps towards what it is that we're wanting to become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a journey and a process. There's a lot of other coaching templates online, 3 steps, 5 steps, do this, get that. And, even different structures for like templates for actually conducting a one-on-one coaching session. And I don't know about you, Paul, but if like some of those structures or frameworks are great, But when you actually step into a live conversation with one of your clients, there's all kinds of unforeseen, unpredictable things arising in the conversation that are off script. Like you can have your intention. These are all the bases I need to cover in this discussion. But oftentimes the conversation ends up going in a direction that is outside of the framework. Okay. And so what I'm trying to establish with this framework is that it's a bigger picture framework. So it's not really into the specifics, but it's more of the laws or principles that are at play in every conversation that you have as a life coach with your client. These are all the foundational principles, right, that are often not consciously recognized or understood. And so what I think is most beneficial for particularly a new coach starting out that's seeking to gain experience, that's seeking to gain confidence and certainty as a life coach, is to have kind of that foundational ability that gives you the support and confidence that you need to step into any conversation with any particular client. Okay, so how does that sound? Does that make sense?
That was the takeaway for me. I'd even just thinking about it now, I had for a very long time, and I still do in some ways. I'm still maybe making sense of how this affects the broader picture for me and my outlook. But thinking about what you just mentioned there in terms of a coaching session. We can go into something relatively short term, like a coaching session, whatever that might be, an hour long, 90 minutes, with a plan. And even in something such short term, we don't really have too much control over the outcome of a result. So if we can't make a plan for something that only lasts an hour and it flow to our expectations, what chance or what hope do we have of these 5-year, 10-year visions that we have? And I think just thinking about what it is that we're needing to do and accomplish and how we go about approaching these things and how we think about these things is crucial. And all of my thinking up to this point has been around, looking at creating that target that we want to move towards, which for me is very closely aligned to the vision that we've spoken about last week. Then it's about, for a very long time I was, and I still am, breaking that vision down into manageable pieces where we can start to look at, what is that first step that we're going to start moving towards. And then I was very much looking at, okay, let's get started and let's manage the resistance that pops up and gets in the way. And that has been very effective. What this way of thinking is helping me see is that there are different ways to look at things. This is more, all right, let's start internally. We're kind of starting in the same place in terms of becoming really clear on what that vision is. But we're going a little bit deeper again, where we're starting very much from that internal place of, setting ourselves up to be able to mitigate the resistance rather than manage the resistance when it comes up. And maybe they're both valid ways of looking at making progress towards our goals. But yeah, I'm super excited to continue exploring how we can. That was my big takeaway from last week. It's, the more we can become clear on our vision, understand our why, that almost creates a sense of drive and purpose in itself that propels us towards that vision. Then we can manage our thoughts, of feelings, emotions, get our mindset right, get ourselves centered and prepared and ready to take the actions. Yes, we can still go through a process of working out exactly what needs to be done. We can still do some planning. But a lot of the preparation has been done. Yes, we have no idea what's going to come up when we actually start taking actions, and there will still be a need to sort of manage stuff as it pops up. And maybe that will circle back and influence how we can do our preparation better the next time. So I love this. I just love that, for me, it's helping me see things from different angles. And, that can only be a positive, and it can only be something that, can really help us in terms of firstly figuring out what I'm gonna go through your 5 W's and your how there in a second, but I'm gonna go through it myself. But I'm gonna hand back over to you, Tyler, because I'm really excited about where this conversation is going to go today.
Yeah, and if you're really clear on your vision, then it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and you have to pace yourself, and you have to. The beginning of the race is different than the middle of the race, and is different than the end of the race. And so this is kind of the overview. And at least today, Paul, I think what I want to accomplish is at least have some context that is a little bit more concrete than some of the abstract. It could have been abstract. I don't know if it was. I think at the time when we discussed Thursday's conversation, the 3 powers of being, I think they all made sense, but it's like taking it now and applying it. So this framework here actually is really context for the conversation that we had and how we started with being, which is who, and our vision is our why, and the how is our mission. The what is our goals, and the where and when we'll get into a little bit. They're kind of things that I added at the end. The primary 4 that we discussed on Thursday with being and the 3 powers are the who, why, how, and what. Okay, So again, just recapping, this is the who is really our core identity. And we've already, there's a saying, I forgot where it's posted, but it's, the Greek philosophers that are said to actually have the greatest influence over today's Western thinking and attitude. There's a statement, know thyself. Okay. And I think that now is reminded, to thy own self be true, to thine own self be true, or something like that. And so the whole idea is to know who, and sometimes instead of who am I, what am I? Okay. But we're just going to go with the who. And we've already touched on that, so I'm not going to get into that. If anyone's watching this video and wants to get into that, they can look at the previous video, the 3 powers of being, and the power source of being. You can refer to that video, and we'll get into that. I'm going to just go through these pretty quickly, Paul. I don't want to get too deep today. It's just I want to paint the overview picture and how it all relates to everything. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good, Tyler.
Okay. So the next question, and this relates to your vision, why am I here? So what is my purpose? And I'm saying why, but another way of asking this question is, what do I really want? What do I really envision for my life this precious opportunity that we have. Why am I here? And again, so when we spoke on Thursday, we talked about the first power and the power of feeling. Okay. So this question, why am I here? It's not really something, we're not in the head so much as we are in the heart, where we feel. So at this place of why am I here, like we have to really get to a place where we feel it in our bones. We feel it in our being. It becomes a part of our innermost core. It becomes who we are. There's a conviction and a certainty and a recognition. And that the reason why it needs to become so deep and so clear is because it's so easy to get knocked off track. It's so easy, to get feedback that maybe is negative or critical, and we become, defeated, and we want to give up. So having that inner conviction and that strength and that vision and the certainty and clarity around that vision about why am I here, it empowers you and enables you and causes you to overcome any obstacle. It's something that you are devoted to and committed to. And that devotion and commitment, we want to develop the strength where it's unshakable.
What would you say to someone who, I'm just going to throw a question at you, Tyler, hopefully you don't mind.
No problem.
Last night we spoke about identity at some point, and we did speak about how it, particularly at the very start of this journey, one of the big challenges that coaches, people have transitioning from a career that they previously had to becoming a life coach. And, we've spoken about that point in time when you truly believe you're a coach and you're able to get out and start practicing coaching with that belief. How can someone who is struggling with that identity of, being a coach, if I'm not a coach, when will I be a coach? What do I need to do? Do I need to go out there and do ABC to allow me to feel like I've become a coach? Do I need a particular qualification? The person who's struggling with those thoughts, how can they apply some of this thinking to who they are and why they are on this journey?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is more at the head level and the action level, the thinking and the action. What do I need to do? And really, those questions start arising because there's something deeper inside that's compelling you, right? And so I think it's really important to become really conscious of what that is deeper inside. Because the more aware you are, the things about what I need to do become more obvious. It's like they kind of take care of it. It kind of takes care of itself. Like there's this, this flow, if you will, or synchronicity, if you will, where it just, it almost like it presents the next step presents itself. It's almost like by magic. You're like, oh my God, this is the perfect thing for me. This feels right. This is what I need to do. Right? It's almost like it comes to you. You attract it rather than, searching for it out of a place of, desperation or fear or whatever. You know what I mean? Does that kind of make sense?
It does, yeah. And, that was very much my line of thinking on this topic is that it is our fears, our doubts, our worries, it's the insecurities that we're bringing about who it is that we are. And, another thing that comes to mind for me is, whatever label we put on our profession or our job isn't really who we are at all. I wouldn't think. We are, we have the ability to be able to see our strengths, create a vision of what we want the future to look like, very much independently to the label that we're going to put on ourselves, or the society is going to put on ourselves about the career choices that we make. And, I guess my way of sort of answering that question, I guess, would be to, really, I love what you said there about, becoming aware. The more we can become aware about, take some of these layers of insecurity off and become aware of what is truly most important to us and why. I think that's what we're kind of getting at there. Hopefully that answers some of the questions that might be coming up down that line of thinking.
Yeah, and we talked about it at this level, it's the cause. It has its own power. Like, you become conscious, you become aware, you become enlivened, you become inspired, you become enthusiastic, you become open, you become receptive. And they talk a lot about, I don't know, you and I have never talked about the word flow, but it's like everything kind of just unfolds almost effortlessly. Have you experienced that?
And I would, most of us can identify periods or times in our past where we have been passionate about making progress towards a vision that we've had. I think we've brought up when we were a child, all that type of stuff. But even as adults, there are periods in our life where we're excited, and we know that when we're in that state of flow, I love that word. I think that's awesome. Flow. We're working towards something that we just can't stop thinking about. We can't not do that work that's required to take us there. So I think that's another interesting thing just to bring attention to, what happens to us when we do get in that state, and, very much understanding that it is possible to rediscover what our true purpose is, or keep coming back to that idea of rediscovering what our true purpose is at any point that we feel off track.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people are, struggling or suffering, is because they're not conscious. They have a why. They have a why. It's in your DNA. It's why you're here, right? The whole idea is to figure it out. That's what you're here to do. Once you figure it out, now you got a guiding light, a North Star, and it's inspired in spirit, inspired from within. It's inside of you. So instead of looking outside, start to look inward. Okay. And so exciting stuff, very exciting stuff. Now the thinking mind wants to get in there. Okay, now that I'm clear about what I want to be, what my purpose is, how on earth am I going to do it? Okay. And the doing part, that's the action part. That comes next. Okay. So at this level, we're in the thinking part, right? So this is the second power, thinking, how? Okay. So this is our mission. I would say our overarching, the question actually is not how am I going to do it? How am I going to be? in order for me to fulfill this vision, how am I going to be? You know, when we're kids, we ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a policeman, or I want to be a doctor, whatever it is. Well, what about I want to be happy? I want to be fulfilled, right? I want to be generous. I want to be kind. How do I want to be? So it's like, okay, I have a vision for myself, but how must I be in order for that vision to get fulfilled? And, you know, it's interesting because this isn't really about doing. Again, we're reverting back to being. How do I want to be? Right? Well, I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be grateful, regardless of what I'm doing. There's all kinds of stuff I have to do that I don't really want to do. But am I going to bitch and complain about it? Is that how I want to be? No. In order for me to fulfill my vision, I need to be. I need to rise up out of that smallness of negativity and judgment and blame. And I want to be responsible. I want to be accountable. I want to be supportive. I want to be inspired. I want to be enthusiastic. Okay? So, and like this entire framework, Paul, these are really, really important things, whether you're an individual to gain clarity on for your own personal life, or you're in business. Like we spoke previously about that businesses have a vision statement and a mission statement, right? Which are usually developed by the collective of the organization through a workshop process. But how many of us do the process in our own lives? Okay, so this is foundational stuff that I greatly encourage all of us to consider, to support us and to help us. Okay. Paul, what do you think?
I love it, Tyler. And I think, I really resonate with everything that you just said there. There are so many things that come up. It's just reaffirming this idea of laying the foundations. Laying the foundations has to be done from the ground up. I love your reference back to business and the corporate world. I spent many years, working on ways to influence, or how to go back retrospectively and change elements of culture, behavior, and this type of stuff. And it's really, really difficult to do. And it's the same for us. I think having a think through how we want to be experiencing our time. This what resonates with me with this is, this is what do we want the journey to look like? It's very much closely related to our values. There's the identity piece sits there as well, but it's, how do we want to be experiencing everything that we do? Because this is absolutely not, all right, I'm just going to apply this to my business and my coaching. This is far beyond that. Why are we even trying to create a coaching business? What is it that we want to give? Very closely related to how we want to go about doing the giving that we want to be doing. I think this is a massive thing that, if we can start to think of this as, the foundational work that is going to set ourselves up to be able to achieve the success and the vision and make the progress that we're looking to make, the more we talk about this, the more clear it becomes that this is just essential work for all of us to pay attention to and to, start the process of laying down those foundations, but building it into our, part of this how, I guess, is, continuously building into our daily routines, into our progress, the reflective pieces required to keep updating and thinking about these questions regularly.
Yeah, and a lot of, the how here, what is in between the feeling. So this is the thinking that we spoke about, the second power. So the second power is it's connected. It's connected to the first power of feeling. How do I want to be? What do I want to experience? And it's connected to the action, the doing. So, what am I going to do? This is asking the how question at a physical level, at the actions level. So what am I going to do? So this is really the cause of an effect. If I do something, it's the cause. It will have an effect. Okay? Obviously, we have a vision of what the effect is that we're looking for. And so what I'm doing should be in alignment with that vision, right? And this is where the goals come in, and a lot of the way that I think about goals, Paul, and it's interesting because you and I haven't talked about sports and growing up and all that kind of stuff, but I played a lot of sports. I coached even as a kid. I coached a team in New Zealand, and a lot of what a coach does is practice. It coaches you on what to practice. We need to practice this. We need to practice that. We need to practice this. So a lot of the way that I look at goals is it's a practice. We're going to practice doing certain things. That's what our commitment is. That's what we're, and those things that we practice are going to help me be what I envision. That's kind of how I look at it.
Awesome. I love it. And, I resonate with that as well, because one of the challenges that I've experienced in the past, and I know a lot of others, in not just coaches, this is across the board, many of the people I've worked with, we have this mentality that we have to be doing everything that we set our mind to, everything that we apply ourselves to, we have to be doing it perfectly. We're too scared. We're scared to mess up. We're scared to fail. We're scared to put ourselves out there without knowing what the result of the action that we're going to be taking is. And I think what you've just described there is, if we can reframe that a little bit and, if we've done all of this work, if we know what it is if we know who we are, what it is that is so important to us, we've done that preparation work, this really does become an easier next step. What is it that I'm going to commit myself to doing next? What's that one thing that is going to take me a step closer to my vision? And you're ready to take action on it. The opposite way, or the more traditional way of setting goals potentially is, all right, let's start with setting the goals. we don't really know how we're going to be able to proceed when we go to take action, but we're not really doing enough of the work to get ourselves prepared and ready to take the action. And I think this framework is just helping us to be certain. We're developing a sense of certainty from within. We still don't know what the result of a particular action is going to be when we take it. And that's not the goal. That's not the point of this, I don't think. We're trying to develop a sense of certainty within ourselves that we know this is the next thing. We believe it's the next thing that we need to do. It might be something we've never done before. It might be something that, brings up some difficult emotions and feelings to deal with, but we still know it's the next thing we need to do. And, hopefully this gives us a little bit more certainty that, we've got what it takes to be able to jump in and do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm excited about this now. Like, I feel like I can talk about goals because we understand the context for the goals. Okay. And so we can think of goals as action. We can think of goals as a practice of doing something and learning and seeing what the outcome is, seeing what the result is. We're not doing it because we're attached to a particular outcome. It's a little bit like an experiment. Well, let's see what happens. Oh, that's interesting. I couldn't have foreseen that, but this is really cool. Wow, and so from a context standpoint, again, let's say we'll just use, being a life coach as an example. So what are the things I need to practice doing in order for my vision as whatever kind of life coach I want to be? What are some of the things that I need to practice? And what are the most important things? Okay. And that's what, that's your training ground. That's how you develop mastery. And that's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you face your resistance. That's how you overcome your fear. And again, at that feeling level, you got to be committed, because all of a sudden there's this thing that is presenting itself before you. At some level, you need to do it, but damn, am I nervous about this? Am I scared about this? And so, that's, and again, at this level, Paul, and you and I have faced it, we know it so well. Is your feeling of fear going to stop you?
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to be a successful life coach, what are the things that I need to do? And, this is the exciting part. And you know what? It also makes things so simple. You don't need to do it all. There's a few things. And the way that I look at it is leveraging time and space. And there's a doing, and just before I get into this, the doing, there's also our ability to do things. It's like a little bonus power, the power of technology, right? It empowers our actions. We're able to do things in time and space that normally we wouldn't be able to do. For example, Paul, for you and I to have a face-to-face meeting prior to technology, it would be really time-consuming and expensive, because you're in Ireland and I'm on the west coast of Canada.
We actually would never have met without the aid of technology. Absolutely.
So this when and where, this time and space, we want to leverage it by embracing technology. So that's part of our doing. That's part of, and I mean, to me, we're not even going to touch on some of that stuff, but that's really what our training and our program is built around, is getting aspiring life coaches to be practicing doing certain things. And technology is definitely a part of it. And, just to get a little bit more abstract and philosophical here with the time and space, we're talking about time and space is the here and now. We're going to do it here and now. We're going to be in the here and now. We're going to face our resistance in the here and now. And I think of time as infinite, and I think of space. I think of time as eternal, and I think of space as infinite. That's just a little exclamation mark. I'm a bit of a philosophy metaphysical buff, so and it's really, I think the importance of the time and space, what I'm talking about, the here and now, is that when we look at it from a more philosophical viewpoint, it frees us up. How many of us are stressed because of time? I don't have time for this. They don't have the space. I can't do this now. We're holding space for each other to fulfill our vision. We need to create the time and space for what's important. We need to make the when and the where a priority. And it needs to be consistent. It needs to be regular. And again, that's why we go through the early steps of our vision and our purpose and our mission and our identity, because we need to make these principles a priority. And we make them a priority in the here and now, in time and space. And we plan for it,
Yep. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is going to this first. We're exposed to so much information. We are bombarded every single day. Our social media feeds just distract us all day long. There is no shortage of different things that we could be doing. But I think going through this whole process, identifying the previous step around goals, what is most important for us to be doing? What actually is going to take us steps closer towards the vision that we're trying to create? And I think once we go through those steps, once we identify what it is that we need to be spending our time practicing and embarking on, that almost allows us to, by saying yes to the set of tasks that we are going to commit ourselves to doing, we're almost acknowledging that we're saying no to everything else that's around us that has the potential to distract us. And it's really difficult to get to that place of being able to identify what it is that we need to be doing without fears and doubts about, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? Or, I can see this person over here, why are they doing this? I should be, we've got the potential to be distracted the vast majority of our time. I think this framework is a really fantastic way for us to be able to gain some clarity on what's important, and what's important for now. Here and now is all I have. The activities that I'm going to do next, today, right now, is all I've got scope for to do today. And is that going to take me a step closer, or am I going to allow the distractions that are happening around me to take over and get in the way? Or am I going to allow my fears and worries and doubts get in the way? I think this is huge, and I think this just ties it all together because, we might identify some milestones along the way that need to be sort of ticked off for us to get to that vision. And I think that's awesome to sort of break it down into manageable chunks, but we don't need to be focusing on each and every one of them now. In this moment, we've only got to be looking at the first step. And I think if we can do that, then, once we get ourselves started, then we're no longer sitting at the start anymore. We're in motion. We're able to sort of apply some reflection. We're able to, build momentum, which is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So these 5 W's and the H, the how, this is the bridge that we all have to cross. We have to go through this journey in order to get to that thing inside of us that inspires us, right? This is the journey. We have to go through this. You can't not go through it. Is this?
I think you can go through it unconsciously, or you can choose to go through it consciously. But one way or the other, if you want to get to your vision and create your vision,
that's a better way to say it. Yeah, the more conscious we can become of it, the better. The more impact and the more empowered we are. The more clarity. We're taking responsibility rather than being at the effect of some other cause. Yeah. So just to wrap up, Paul, I don't have much else to add to this. Does this add to? I remember when we started this conversation, we were talking about how to apply these principles. Is this helping paint the picture a bit better?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And, it just reinforces the value in that talk we had last Thursday. 3 powers. If anyone's listening and wants to go back to that, 3 powers of being, that was the underlying framework. And this does paint the picture of how you can work through that process. Still at a really high level. There is so much that we could do to explore this topic in much, much more detail. And hopefully we get the chance to do that over the next little while.
Well, what I hope we get the chance to do is to work with people in a group coaching environment to go through this process and to address these really important questions that we all, really are really seeking to know the answers to. And we need to be conscious, as you say. We need to be conscious of the question, and we need to be clear about the answer, conscious about the answer. So, and this is a process. This is something that, you can spend a long time on. And I think you and I would love to be able to take a group through this process over a year time, to do some type of a year program, and where we get to practice some of the goals that we identify, and where we get to support each other and support each other in asking the questions and answering the questions and sharing the questions with others, so that you are hearing yourself say it. It's just not an internal conversation you're having. You're actually putting it out into the world. And that's a really important step to take. And at first, you need to have the space and the support and the safety to be able to do it. You know, I was listening to a talk the other day where somebody shared that the question, "Who am I?" scared the shit out of them. Right? And I mean, there's reasons for that, which we're not going to get into. But anyways, I think I've said enough, Paul. I appreciate you being here again with me to discuss this stuff. And I think we're on for next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to that again.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks for checking us out again today, and look forward to continuing the conversation with you next week on Tuesday and Thursday.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.